Hello and welcome. Join me as we follow the gentle journey of a London fox through a quiet day and night, slow, peaceful, and made for sleep. The afternoon light shines through the narrow gap between a shed and a garden fence, and in this small, hidden place, a fox is resting. The fox is a red fox, though the colour is not quite red in the way one might imagine, more a soft russet brown along the back and sides, fading to cream along the throat and belly, with dark stockings on slender legs and a white tip at the end of a long, full tail. The fox lies curled in a shallow hollow. It has shaped over many days, pressed close against the wooden wall of the shed where the old paint has silvered and split with weather and time. The hollow is lined with dry leaves that drifted here in autumn and never left, and beneath the leaves is cool earth that holds the shape of the fox's body. The air is still. The fox's eyes are closed, though not in deep sleep, rather in that halfway state where the world is sensed but not quite seen, where sounds arrive softly and are noted without urgency. A car passes on the street beyond the garden, its engine a low hum that rises and fades. A bird calls from somewhere overhead, a brief chatter that asks nothing and expects no answer. The fox's ears twitch slightly, registering these things, then settle again into stillness. The garden around the fox is long and narrow, as London gardens often are, bordered by fences on either side and ending at a back wall covered in ivy. There are flower beds near the house, though most of the blooms have finished for the season, and a small patch of lawn that has grown uneven and moss-covered in the shade. Near the shed, there is a pile of old terracotta pots, a rusted watering can, and a tangle of garden canes tied with faded string. Everything is quiet, everything is familiar. The fox has lived in this part of the city for all of its life, moving through a territory that extends several streets in each direction. A landscape of gardens and alleyways, of railway embankments and small parks, of quiet roads and the edges of busier ones. It is a territory marked and known, traced over and over in the same soft patterns, a map written in scent and memory, and the preference for certain routes over others. The fox knows where the fences have gaps, where the walls can be climbed or slipped beneath, where the bins are kept, and when they are most likely to be left open or knocked over by the wind. This particular garden is one of several places the fox rests during the day. It is not the den, which is elsewhere, hidden more carefully still, but it is safe and undisturbed, a place where the human who lives in the house rarely ventures beyond hanging laundry or stepping out briefly to fill the bird feeder. The fox has learned the rhythms of this household as it has learned the rhythms of many others. The times when doors open and close, the sound of footsteps that means someone is coming outside, the difference between the noise of activity and the noise of departure. Now, in the afternoon, the fox rests. Its breathing is slow and even, its body relaxed but not quite loose, still holding that slight tension that allows for quick waking if needed. The light shifts incrementally as the sun moves lower, the slanted beam narrowing and brightening, then beginning to fade as clouds gather somewhere to the west. The temperature drops a degree or two, though the change is so gradual it is hardly felt. Time passes in the way it does when nothing urgent is required, when the body is still and the world moves on around it without demand or interruption. A cat appears on the fence above the fox, stepping carefully along the narrow wooden edge, its tail held high for balance. The fox's eyes open slightly, just a glint of amber beneath dark lids, and the fox watches without moving. The cat pauses, looks down, sees the fox, and pauses longer. There is no tension between them. The cat is a neighbour of sorts, a creature that shares this landscape without claiming the same spaces or competing for the same resources. After a moment, the cat continues along the fence and drops down into the next garden, disappearing into a hedge. The fox closes its eyes again. A plane passes high overhead, its sound a distant, steady drone that seems to flatten the sky, and then it is gone, and the quiet settled back like water closing over a stone. The fox shifts slightly, stretching one back leg, then curling again into the same position. The day is not yet finished, but it is moving toward its end, and the fox can feel this in the quality of the light, in the way the air has begun to cool, in the subtle shift in the sounds that reach this hidden corner of the garden. Soon it will be time to move, to leave this resting place, and begin the slow evening wandering that fills the hours of dusk and night. But not yet. The fox's body is warm where it touches itself, the tail wrapped around to cover the nose and paws, and cool where it meets the air. The leaves beneath shift slightly with each breath, a faint rustling that is barely sound at all, more a texture of movement felt rather than heard. The fox is aware of its own body in the way one becomes aware of a familiar room in darkness, knowing where everything is without needing to see, trusting in the ordinary and the known. There is no discomfort, no hunger yet, no urgency. There is only the continuation of rest, the slow accumulation of stillness that will give way, eventually, to movement. The light is golden now, the particular golden that comes late in the afternoon when the sun is low and the air is clear, and it falls across the top of the fence and the upper branches of a tree in the next garden, leaving the fox's hollow in shadow. The fox does not see this, but senses it, the way one might sense the passage of time without looking at a clock, simply through the accumulation of small changes that together mark the movement of the day. A blackbird lands on the grass near the flower beds, hops forward a few steps, tilts its head, and listens for worms. The fox hears the bird but does not stir. The bird finds something, tugs it from the soil, and flies away. There is a moment, repeated many times each day, when the city seems to pause, to take a breath between one state and another. It happens now, as the afternoon tips toward evening, as the people who work in offices and shops begin to think of home, as traffic builds on main roads but side streets remain empty, as the light softens and shadows lengthen, and the air begins to carry different scents. The fox, still resting, is part of this pause, this held breath, this moment when nothing is required and everything continues in its own slow time. The wind picks up slightly, moving through the ivy on the back wall, a sound like paper rustling, and the fox's ears turn towards it and then back. The wind brings scents, cut grass from somewhere nearby, the faint tang of diesel from the road, something sweet and rotting from a compost heap, the distant smell of food being cooked in a kitchen with an open window. The fox processes these scents without thinking, the way one might notice the smell of rain without consciously deciding to notice it, simply receiving the information and storing it in the map of the world that is always being updated, always being refined. A door opens in the house, and the fox's eyes open fully now, alert but not alarmed. Footsteps cross the kitchen floor, then stop. A tap runs, the door closes again. The fox listens to the silence that follows, confirming that no one has come outside, and settles once more. The household is preparing for evening in its own way, just as the fox is preparing, though the preparations are different. The humans will eat, perhaps watch television, eventually sleep in their beds inside the warm, lit house. The fox will wake fully, will move through the territory, will forage and patrol and mark and return, will be active while the city sleeps and rest again when the city wakes. The light is fading faster now, the golden tones draining away into blue-grey, and the temperature drops more noticeably. The fox stirs, stretching each leg in turn, arching its back, opening its jaws in a wide yawn that shows sharp white teeth and a pale pink tongue. The fox stands, shakes once, and the leaves clinging to its fur fall away. It stretches again, front legs extended, chest low, rear end high, the way all foxes stretch, and all dogs, and all cats, a universal gesture of waking and readying. Then it sits and begins to groom. The grooming is methodical and unhurried. The fox licks its paws and rubs them over its face, cleaning the ears and eyes and muzzle. It licks its chest and belly, smoothing the fur, then twists to reach its back and sides, working carefully over the haunches and tail. This is not vanity, but maintenance, the necessary care of the coat that keeps out water and cold, that carries scent and displays condition, that is both armor and signal. The fox grooms with the same attention one might give to tying shoelaces or buttoning a coat, a small ritual that marks the transition from rest to activity, from sleeping to waking, from the private space of the hollow to the public space of the territory. When the grooming is finished, the fox stands again and moves to the edge of the hollow, sniffing the air, testing the world beyond this small, safe place. The light is dim now, the sky above the garden a deepening blue, with the first faint stars appearing in the east. The city is settling into its evening sounds, doors closing, voices calling goodnight, the rattle of dishes being washed, the muted sound of televisions and radios filtering through windows. The fox steps out from behind the shed, moving slowly, pausing to look and listen before committing to each movement, the way one might navigate a familiar room in near darkness, trusting in memory but confirming with senses. The garden is empty except for the fox. The bird feeder sways slightly in the breeze, and the last of the day's birds have gone to roost. The fox crosses the lawn, its paws silent on the damp grass, and approaches the fence at the far end of the garden. There is a gap here, low down, where two fence panels meet, and the fox has widened it over time by squeezing through repeatedly, by scratching at the earth beneath. The fox slips through the gap without pause, the movement fluid and practiced, and emerges into the alley that runs behind the row of houses. The alley is narrow and dark, lined with fences and back gates, with wheelie bins and recycling boxes, with the occasional abandoned bicycle or pile of cardboard waiting for collection. The fox knows this alley as intimately as it knows the garden it has just left, knows every doorstep and every bin, every place where food might be found, and every place where it is better to move quickly and quietly. The fox pauses to sniff at the base of a fence post, reading the scents left by other foxes. A mark from earlier in the day, familiar, the scent of another fox whose territory overlaps slightly with this one. An understanding reached through pattern rather than confrontation. The fox adds its own mark, a brief squat and a few drops of urine, bright smelling and assertive. A message left for any who pass this way. Then it moves on, trotting down the alley with its head low and tail level. A grey shadow moving through grey shadows, almost invisible in the gathering dark. At the end of the alley, the fox pauses again, peering out at the road beyond. The road is quiet, a residential street with cars parked along both sides and street lamps glowing orange at intervals. A car passes, its headlights sweeping across the alley entrance, and the fox waits, perfectly still, until the car is gone and the road is empty again. Then the fox crosses, swift and low, and slips into the next alley, continuing its route through the familiar maze of backways and hidden paths that connect this part of the city in a map known only to the creatures that use them. The fox is unhurried but purposeful, moving through its territory in the same way one might move through a familiar neighborhood, taking the same turnings out of habit and preference, noting the small changes that have occurred since the last patrol, but mostly finding everything as it was and as it always is. There is a corner the fox always turns the same way, not because it must, but because it prefers to. The paving stones here are smoother. The hedge holds the wind back. The scents gather in a way the fox understands. The city has many routes, but the fox keeps choosing the ones that feel like home. The city at dusk is a different place than the city in daylight or deep night. It is a transitional time, a time when the busy urgency of the day has eased, but the quiet stillness of night has not yet settled. People are in their homes but not yet asleep. Lights glow in windows, the smell of cooking drifts on the air, televisions murmur, children are called inside, doors are locked, curtains are drawn. The fox moves through this transitional time as if it belongs here, as if it is part of the mechanism of the city itself, one of the gears that turns while others pause, one of the rhythms that runs counterpoint to the human rhythms that dominate during the day. The fox emerges from an alley onto a slightly larger road, still residential but busier, with terraced houses on either side and cars passing more frequently. The fox does not cross immediately, but waits in the shadow of a hedge, watching. A man walks by with a small dog on a lead, and the fox shrinks further back into the shadow, waiting. The dog sniffs the air and pulls toward the hedge, whining softly, but the man tugs the lead and they continue on. The fox waits until they have turned the corner, until the sound of their footsteps has faded, and then crosses the road and continues on. The fox moves through a stretch of street where the lamps are spaced far apart, leaving wide bands of darkness between each pool of orange light. It steps into the glow, then out again, the way a thought drifts into awareness and then slips back into sleep. Each lamp hums softly, barely audible, and the fox passes beneath them, as if passing beneath low, warm moons. There is a small park ahead one of those London squares that were once private gardens for the residents of the surrounding houses, but are now open to everyone, enclosed by railings with entrances at each corner. The gates are locked at night, but the fox knows where the railings are loose, where the ground has eroded beneath them, and it slips through easily, emerging into the park itself. The park is dark and empty, the paths unlit, the grass damp with dew, the trees standing black against the darkening sky. The fox moves along the edge of the grass under the shelter of shrubs and low branches, pausing frequently to sniff and listen. The park smells of earth and old leaves, of the urine of many dogs walked here during the day, of pigeon droppings and spilled food, and the green scent of growing things that persists even into winter. The fox moves to a particular shrub, one it has marked before, and marks it again, then continues around the perimeter of the park, following the fence line, checking the corners where the bins are kept and sometimes overflow with rubbish. Tonight, the bins are closed, but there are some scraps scattered on the ground nearby, a crust of bread, some chips gone soft and cold, and the fox eats these methodically, swallowing without chewing, taking what is offered without expectation of more. A siren sounds in the distance, a high, wavering wail that rises and falls and then fades away, moving through the city on streets the fox never walks. The fox pauses, ears pricked, listening until the sound is gone, then continues. The night is fully here now, the sky dark overhead with clouds that hide the stars, the city lit by the orange glow of street lamps and the scattered lights of windows. The fox leaves the park the same way it entered and continues its wandering, moving through streets and alleys, through gardens and along the edges of railway embankments, following routes it has followed countless times before, the way one might follow the same path to work each morning without thinking about the turnings, simply trusting in habit and memory. Behind a row of shops, the fox finds a place where warm air spills gently from a vent, carrying the soft smell of bread and detergent and indoor warmth. It pauses there, not for food, not for anything urgent, just to stand in the warmth for a moment, letting it soak into fur and skin. Then, when it has had enough, it moves on as calmly as it arrived. The fox comes to a railway line, one of the many that thread through London, and follows the embankment for a while, trotting along the narrow path that runs between the fence and the steep slope of scrub and brambles. The trains have stopped for the night, or nearly so, and the tracks are dark and silent. The fox knows this path well, knows where the brambles are thickest and where they are thinner, where the rabbit warrens are hidden in the slope, where the path narrows and care must be taken not to slip. Tonight, there are no rabbits, or if there are, they are hidden deep in their burrows, safe from the fox and the cold. Somewhere far off, a train moves through the night, just a low rolling sound, more felt than heard. It arrives, it passes, and it fades again, leaving a stillness behind it that feels even deeper by comparison. The fox listens until the last trace disappears, then continues. The path eventually leads to a break in the fence, a place where the wire has been cut or rusted through, and the fox slips through and emerges onto a side street lined with lock-up garages and industrial units. This is a quieter part of the fox's territory, less residential, the buildings closed and dark at night, the streets empty of people. The fox trots down the middle of the road, confident in the emptiness, and pauses at a skip that has been left outside one of the units, its metal sides rusty, its contents hidden in shadow. The fox stands on its hind legs and hooks its front paws over the edge of the skip, peering in. There is rubbish here: broken wood, pieces of plasterboard, tangles of wire, but also a black bin bag that has split, and inside the bag are the remains of someone's lunch, sandwiches gone stale, an apple core, a yogurt pot with some yogurt still clinging to the sides. The fox pulls the bag closer with its paws, tears it further with its teeth, and eats the sandwiches and the apple core, licking the yogurt pot clean. This is not the best food the fox has found, but it is food, and the fox wastes nothing. It takes a little more than it needs right now, not greedily, not triumphantly, just with the quiet sense that somewhere else, in a hidden place, there are familiar bodies curled in warmth, and it is good to return with something. When the skip has been thoroughly investigated and everything edible removed, the fox drops back down to the ground and continues on. The night is cold now, the kind of cold that seeps through fur and skin and settles into bones, and the fox moves more briskly, generating warmth through movement. The streets are quiet, the city settling into the deepest part of night, when even the last of the late night revelers have gone home, and the early morning workers have not yet risen. This is the fox's time, the time when the city belongs to the creatures that live in its margins and shadows, that move through it unseen and unnoticed, that have their own lives and purposes entirely separate from the human lives that dominate during the day. The fox comes to a larger road, one of the arterial roads that carry traffic through the city at all hours, though even here the traffic is sparse now, just the occasional night bus or taxi or delivery van. The fox does not cross this road but follows it for a while, staying on the pavement, moving in and out of the pools of light cast by street lamps. A bus passes, lit up inside and nearly empty, just a few passengers scattered across the seats, and the fox watches it go, then continues on. A bus stop sits empty under its clear plastic shelter, a simple little room facing the road. A timetable flutters slightly at the edges. The fox passes by without interest, but the shelter catches the street light and makes it softer, spreading it out like a thin wash of paint. There is a kebab shop on the corner, still open, its bright lights spilling out onto the pavement, the smell of cooked meat and grease thick in the air. The fox approaches cautiously, staying close to the wall, and finds the bins at the side of the shop. They are overflowing, black bags piled around them, and the fox tears into one of the bags, pulling out polystyrene containers and chip wrappers, finding scraps of meat and chips and salad gone limp and brown. The fox eats quickly, efficiently, aware that this is a place where people come and go, where it might be disturbed at any moment. A man comes out of the shop, talking loudly on his phone, and the fox freezes, pressed against the wall, invisible in the shadow. The man walks past without seeing it, still talking, and disappears down the street. The fox waits a moment, then returns to the bins, finishing what it has found, then moving on. The smell of the kebab shop follows the fox for a while, clinging to its muzzle and paws, and the fox pauses to lick its paws clean, grooming briefly before continuing. The territory is large enough that the fox cannot cover all of it in a single night, but it does not need to. The fox knows which areas are most likely to yield food, which areas are most likely to be disturbed, and it adjusts its route accordingly, following a pattern that is flexible rather than fixed, responsive to the changing conditions of the city. Tonight, the fox is moving through the southern part of its territory, through streets it has not visited for a few days, checking familiar places, reasserting its presence, making sure that nothing has changed too much, that the map it carries in its mind is still accurate. In a small front garden, a sprinkler is broken and ticking, one steady drip that falls into a shallow dish and makes a quiet, repeating sound. The fox stands and listens for a while. The drip becomes a kind of metronome, as if the night is counting itself down in the gentlest way possible. The fox comes to a garden that it knows well, a garden with a fish pond and a compost heap, and a greenhouse where someone grows tomatoes in the summer. The fox slips through the hedge and crosses the lawn, moving toward the pond. The pond is small and round, edged with stones, and goldfish live in it, bright orange shapes that move slowly in the dark water. The fox has tried to catch these fish before, but the pond is too deep and the fish too quick, and the fox has learned that the effort is not worth the reward. Instead, the fox drinks from the pond, lapping the cold water, then moves on to the compost heap. The compost heap is more promising. It is a large wooden box with a hinged lid, and the fox has learned to lift the lid by pushing it with its nose and then holding it up with its head while it investigates the contents. Tonight the heap is full of kitchen scraps and garden waste, and the fox sorts through it methodically, eating the bits of fruit and vegetable that have not yet rotted, ignoring the grass clippings and tea bags and potato peelings that offer no nutrition. There are worms in the compost, fat and pale, and the fox eats these too, snapping them up quickly before they can retreat into the soil. A light comes on in the house, a sudden bright square in the darkness, and the fox drops the lid of the compost heap and slips back into the shadows, waiting. A figure appears at the window, looking out, and the fox stays perfectly still, just another shadow among shadows. The light stays on for a long time, long enough that the fox begins to consider leaving, but then it goes off again, and the house is dark once more. The fox waits a little longer, then returns to the compost heap, finishes its investigation, and leaves the garden the way it came. The night is at its deepest now, the hours between midnight and dawn, when the city is as quiet as it ever gets, when even the background hum of traffic and machinery seems to fade, when the darkness feels thicker and the cold more penetrating. The fox's breath mists in the air, small clouds that appear and vanish with each exhalation. The fox is not tired yet, not ready to return to the den, and so it continues to wander, to patrol, to forage, moving through the territory in the slow, methodical way that ensures everything is checked, everything is noted, everything is known. Along a street lined with plane trees, the leaves rattle softly, a dry papery sound high above. The fox walks beneath them, and the world feels briefly sheltered, roofed by branches, held by shadows. The city is still the city, but here it feels more like a corridor of quiet. The fox comes to a street where the houses are larger and set further back from the road, with long front gardens and tall hedges. This is a quieter, wealthier part of the territory, where the bins are kept in neat enclosures and the gardens are well maintained and the cars parked in driveways are expensive and clean. The fox has less success finding food here, but the gardens are often undisturbed and offer good places to rest during the day. The fox slips through a gap in a hedge and finds itself in a large garden with a lawn like a carpet and flower beds edged with brick. In the center of the lawn is a bird bath, a stone bowl on a pedestal, and the fox approaches it and drinks the water cold and clean, better than the water from the pond. The garden is still and silent, the house dark, and the fox feels safe here for the moment, safe enough to sit and rest, to groom again, to simply be present in the space without the need to move or search or patrol. The fox sits on the lawn, its tail wrapped around its paws, and looks up at the sky. The clouds have thinned and the moon is visible now, a waning crescent hanging low in the west, pale and cold and distant. The fox looks at the moon without understanding what it is, sees only a bright shape in the darkness, one of the many features of the night that is noted but not questioned. Around the moon, a few stars are visible, pinpricks of light scattered across the sky, and the fox looks at these too, its head tilted slightly, its expression calm and untroubled. A fox in the city lives in a world that is both wild and domestic, both natural and constructed, moving between these states with ease, treating the city as simply another kind of landscape, one with its own rules and rhythms and opportunities. The fox does not think of itself as wild or as domestic, does not think of the city as strange or unnatural, simply experiences it as it is, as the place where it lives and has always lived, where its mother lived and her mother before her, a lineage of foxes stretching back through generations, all adapting, all surviving, all making their lives in the margins and shadows of the human world. The fox stands and continues on, leaving the garden and returning to the street. The route is taking the fox gradually back toward the northern part of its territory, toward the area where the den is located, though the fox is not heading directly there, not yet ready to return. There are still places to check, still possibilities to investigate, and the fox is in no hurry. The night feels long, feels as if it will last forever, and there is something pleasant in this feeling, in the slow accumulation of small moments, small discoveries, small confirmations that the world is as it should be. The fox is alone on the streets, but it is not alone in life. The territory has a centre, and the centre is home. The fox passes a church, a Victorian building of dark brick with a tall spire and a graveyard surrounding it. The graveyard is old and overgrown, the headstones tilted and moss-covered, the paths cracked and weed-choked. The fox has been here before many times, knows that the graveyard is a good place to find voles and mice, small creatures that nest among the roots of the yew trees and venture out at night to feed. The fox slips through the gates which stand open and moves into the graveyard, keeping to the edges, moving slowly and carefully, listening. The fox hears something, a faint rustling among the fallen leaves, and it becomes still, as if the whole body is listening. The sound is small, almost shy, leaf against leaf, the softest movement beneath the roots of a yew tree. The fox lowers its head and takes a few careful steps, placing each paw as lightly as it can, letting the night remain undisturbed. For a long moment there is only quiet and the damp scent of earth. And then, just as quietly as the sound appeared, it stops. The fox pauses, nose close to the ground, reading the place the way it reads everything. Through scent, through memory, through the gentle logic of the night. It lingers for a while, moving slowly between the tilted stones and brambles, attentive but unhurried, letting the graveyard offer what it will, and not asking for more. When there is nothing else to find here, the fox slips back towards the gate, leaving the old stones and the yew shadows behind. The night continues calm and wide, and the fox continues with it. The sky is beginning to change, the darkness thinning in the east, the first hint of dawn, still an hour or more away, but present nonetheless in the quality of the air, in the way the cold seems to intensify, in the way the city seems to hold its breath before waking. The fox is beginning to think of returning to the den now, beginning to feel the pull of that safe, hidden place, the need to rest after the long night's wandering, but there is no urgency, no rush, and the fox continues to move through its territory, checking a few more places, marking a few more spots, finishing the patrol in its own time. Later, as the night leans toward morning, the fox begins to angle its route inward, subtly at first, almost without decision. The streets become more familiar with every turn. The fox doesn't hurry. It simply lets the map inside it guide the body home. The fox comes to a railway bridge, a low brick arch that carries a side street over the tracks, and beneath the bridge is a small space where rubbish collects, blown there by the wind or thrown there by passing people. The fox investigates this space, finds a pizza box with a few crusts still inside, and eats them. The crusts are hard and cold, but the fox eats them anyway, then sniffs around the rest of the space, finding nothing more of interest. A train passes below the bridge, the first of the morning. Its sound sudden and loud in the stillness. The vibration felt through the ground, and the fox flinches but does not run, familiar with the trains, with their noise and speed and the way they shake the earth. The train passes, and the silence returns, deeper now in contrast, and the fox emerges from beneath the bridge and continues on. The route is taking the fox closer to the den now, through streets that are even more familiar, that are walked almost every night, that are the center of the fox's world. The fox moves with more confidence here, moves more quickly, the body language shifting from the cautious exploration of the outer territory to the relaxed purposefulness of being close to home. The den is in a quiet residential street beneath a shed in a back garden, a place the fox has used for several years, a place that is safe and dry and hidden, where the fox has raised cubs and weathered storms and slept through countless days. Here, the fox slows, not out of fear, but out of care, as if quiet matters more near home. The fox approaches the garden cautiously, as always, checking that nothing has changed, that no new threats have appeared. The garden is quiet, the house dark, and the fox slips through the fence and crosses the lawn to the shed. Beneath the shed is a gap, a hole the fox has dug over time, and the fox squeezes through this hole and disappears into the darkness beneath. The den is cool and dry, smelling of earth and fox, a comfortable, familiar smell. The space is larger than it appears from outside, the fox having excavated a chamber beneath the shed floor, a rounded space just large enough to turn around in, with a tunnel leading to a second, smaller entrance at the back of the shed. The floor of the den is packed earth, and the fox has brought in dry leaves and grass over time, creating a soft bed. The fox circles once, twice, then lies down, curling into the same position as before, tail wrapped around nose, body compact and warm. Beneath the shed, the fox sleeps with the unspoken certainty that it belongs somewhere. That certainty is its own kind of warmth. The fox is tired now, the night's activity catching up, the need for sleep becoming insistent. The fox's eyes close, the body relaxes, and within minutes, the fox is asleep. Truly asleep this time, deeply asleep in the way that is only possible in a safe place, in a known place, in a place where the fox can surrender consciousness without fear. Above, the world continues, the sky lightens, the first birds begin to sing, the city begins to stir, but the fox knows nothing of this. Lost in the dreamless sleep of exhaustion and safety. The morning comes slowly, the light seeping into the sky like water into sand, gradual and inevitable. The darkness drains away, replaced by a thin grey light that reveals the outlines of buildings and trees, that makes the street lamps seem suddenly unnecessary and forlorn. The birds sing more loudly now, a chorus that builds and swells, blackbirds and robins and wrens, each proclaiming territory, seeking mates, marking the beginning of the day. The city wakes in stages, not all at once. First the early risers, the shift workers and delivery drivers, then the commuters, then the shopkeepers and office workers, the students and the retired, each group adding to the noise and movement until the city is fully awake, fully alive, fully occupied. But beneath the shed, the fox sleeps on, undisturbed by the growing light and noise. The fox is a nocturnal creature, adapted to sleep through the day and wake at dusk, and its sleep is deep and restorative, the body repairing itself, the mind at rest. The den is dark, even though the day has come, the walls of earth and the floor of the shed above blocking out the light, creating a pocket of night within the day. The fox's breathing is slow and regular, the body completely still, except for the slight rise and fall of the rib cage, the occasional twitch of a paw or ear as some fleeting dream passes through. The morning progresses. Above, in the house, people wake and move about, preparing for the day. The sound of a shower running, the clatter of dishes, voices calling to one another, the front door opening and closing, a car starting and driving away. The fox stirs slightly at some of these sounds, the ears twitching, but does not wake. The fox has learned which sounds are threats and which are simply the background noise of human life, and these sounds are familiar, expected, part of the pattern of the days that have passed before and the days that will come after. A dog barks in a nearby garden, a sharp, insistent sound, and the fox's eyes spin briefly, alert but not alarmed. The barking continues for a few minutes, then stops. The fox closes its eyes again. The morning is bright now, the sun climbing higher, the grey light giving way to something clearer and warmer. The garden above the den is quiet, the humans gone to work or school, the house empty except perhaps for a cat sleeping on a bed upstairs or a goldfish circling slowly in a tank. The fox sleeps through the morning, through the busy hours when the city is at its most active, through the noise of traffic and construction, through the shouts of children in the playground of a nearby school, through the steady drone of aircraft passing overhead. None of this disturbs the fox, who is sealed away in the den, separate from the day, existing in a different time, a different rhythm. The fox's body is relaxed, the muscles loose, the face peaceful. There is no tension here, no vigilance, only the absolute surrender to sleep that is possible only in a safe place, in a place that has proven itself safe over and over, in a place where the fox can trust completely. The day reaches its peak, the sun high and the shadows short, the temperature rising to a mild warmth that feels pleasant after the cold of the night. The garden is filled with light, and the grass glows green, and the flowers in the beds, though mostly finished for the season, still show flashes of colour. A late blooming rose, a few chrysanthemums, the bright red berries of a cotonista. Bees move slowly through the remaining blooms, and butterflies, if there are any left this late in the year, drift on erratic paths. The world is busy and alive, filled with the activity of creatures that are active during the day, that thrive in light and warmth, that are the opposite of the fox in their rhythms and habits. In a quiet corner of a nearby park, a small football pitch holds the day's light on wet grass. The dew shines faintly under a single lamp at the edge, as if the ground has been sprinkled with tiny, quiet stars. Even in daylight, there are places that feel half asleep. But beneath the shed, time seems to have stopped. The fox sleeps on, unchanging, unmoving, a still point in the turning world. The den is timeless, ageless, a pocket of darkness and quiet that exists outside the flow of the day. The fox could be sleeping for an hour or for many hours, could be in this den or any den, could be this fox or any fox that has ever lived in this city or any city. There is something universal in the image of the sleeping animal, something that connects across species and time, the simple need for rest, for safety, for a place to retreat from the world and let down one's guard. The afternoon begins, the light shifting again, the shadows lengthening, the temperature starting to drop. The city remains busy, but the quality of the business changes, becomes less urgent, more routine. People come home from work, children return from school, shops begin to think about closing. The rhythm of the day shifts toward evening. The fox begins to stir, not fully waking, but rising toward wakefulness, the sleep becoming lighter, the body beginning to respond to the passage of time, to the approach of dusk, to the instinct that says the night is coming and it is time to prepare. The fox's eyes open, blink slowly, close again. The fox stretches within the confines of the den, extending each leg, arching the back, yawning widely. The fox is not yet ready to leave the den, not yet ready to face the world outside, but the sleep is loosening its hold, and the fox is becoming aware again of its body, of the den, of the faint sounds that filter down from above. The fox listens to these sounds, identifying them, sorting them, confirming that nothing is wrong, that the world is as it should be. A car drives past on the street, its engine noise rising and falling. A bird calls from a tree in the garden. A door closes somewhere nearby. All of these sounds are normal, expected, and the fox relaxes, reassured. The fox shifts position, uncurling slightly, the tail unwrapping from around the nose, the body stretching out more fully. The fox is awake now, or nearly so, suspended in that state between sleep and waking, where the body is resting, but the mind is beginning to engage, beginning to think ahead to the night that is coming. The light in the den is unchanging, the darkness absolute, and the fox cannot see the passage of time in the way a human might cannot watch the sun move across the sky or see the shadows shift. But the fox can feel it, can sense it in the way the sounds change, in the way the air smells, in the internal clock that governs the fox's life, and that is as reliable as any timepiece. The fox knows that dusk is approaching, that soon it will be time to leave the den and begin the evening's activities. The patrol and forage and marking that fill the hours of darkness. The fox begins to groom, the ritual that marks the transition from sleep to waking, the preparation for re-entering the world. The fox licks its paws and rubs them over its face, smooths the fur on its chest and belly, twists to reach its back and haunches. The grooming is thorough and unhurried, each part of the body attended to, the fur smoothed and cleaned, the scent of the den gradually replaced by the fox's own scent, fresh and sharp. The grooming is also a way of waking fully, of bringing the body back to readiness, of sharpening the senses and the focus. When the grooming is finished, the fox sits listening. The sounds from above have changed again, have become the sounds of evening, doors opening and closing more frequently, voices calling, the smell of cooking drifting on the air. The fox can smell this cooking, can detect the sense of meat and vegetables and spices, and the smell triggers a response, a stirring of hunger, a reminder that the night's foraging will need to be successful if the fox is to maintain its strength and health. The fox stands, stretches once more, and moves toward the entrance of the den. The fox pauses at the entrance, sniffing the air that comes through the gap, testing it for danger or disturbance. The air smells of earth and grass and the faint tang of wood smoke from someone's chimney. The fox listens, hears nothing alarming, and squeezes through the gap, emerging into the space beneath the shed. The light here is dim, the last of the day filtering through cracks and gaps, and the fox pauses again, allowing its eyes to adjust, listening to the sounds of the garden above. The garden is quiet, the household inside preparing dinner, and the fox feels safe to continue. The fox moves to the second entrance at the back of the shed, a smaller gap that leads directly to the undergrowth behind the shed, and squeezes through this gap, emerging into the garden itself. The fox shakes, the fur settling into place, and stands still for a moment, taking in the garden, confirming that everything is as it should be. The light is fading fast now, the sky above a deep blue, the first stars appearing, the street lamps beginning to glow orange in the streets beyond the garden. The air is cold and still, carrying the scent of autumn, of leaves and earth and the approaching winter. The fox can feel the cold through its fur, can feel the need to move to generate warmth, and it begins to walk, crossing the garden toward the fence, moving toward the alley and the territory beyond. The fox slips through the gap in the fence and enters the alley, and the pattern repeats. The same route as the night before and the night before that, the same patrol, the same investigation, the same marking and foraging and checking. The fox is a creature of habit, preferring the known to the unknown, the familiar to the new, and this preference has served it well, has kept it alive and healthy, has allowed it to learn the territory so thoroughly that it can navigate in complete darkness, can find food where others would find none, can avoid danger before it becomes a threat. The alley is dark and cold, and the fox moves through it with purpose, heading toward the eastern part of its territory tonight, toward streets and gardens it knows well, toward places where food might be found and boundaries need to be checked. The fox's breath mists in the cold air, small clouds that appear and vanish with each exhalation. The fox's paws are silent on the pavement, the movement fluid and efficient, the body perfectly adapted to this life, this place, this way of being. The fox comes to a road and pauses, looking both ways, listening. A car passes, its headlights sweeping across the street, and the fox waits until it is gone before crossing, swift and low, a shadow moving through shadows. The fox slips into a garden, crosses the lawn, investigates the space beneath a hedge where sometimes rabbits nest, but finds nothing tonight. The fox marks the hedge, adds its scent to the complex layering of scents that already exist here. The scents of other foxes, other creatures, the ongoing conversation that happens in scent, in marks left and read, in the language that animals speak without words. The fox continues on, moving through the territory in the same way it has moved through it countless times before, the same routes, the same checks, the same pattern. The night unfolds around the fox, quiet and cold and dark, and the fox is part of it, is inseparable from it, is as much a feature of the night as the darkness itself. The city sleeps or begins to sleep, and the fox is awake, is active, is alive and present and enduring. And so it goes, night after night, season after season, year after year. The fox lives its life in the margins of the human world, unseen and mostly unknown, but present nonetheless, a wild creature in a city, an ancient wildness that persists in modern spaces, that adapts and survives and continues. The fox asks for nothing, expects nothing, simply lives and moves and exists. A small life in a vast world, but a life that matters, that has value, that is complete and whole in itself. The night deepens, the fox continues its patrol, and the city sleeps on, unaware of the small figure moving through its streets and gardens, the small life unfolding in its shadows. And perhaps this is how it should be. Perhaps this is the right relationship. The fox living alongside humans but separate from them, occupying the same space but in different ways at different times. Two worlds overlapping but never quite meeting, each continuing in its own rhythm, each valuable, each necessary, each complete. The stars wheel overhead, the moon rises and sets, the city breathes in and out, and the fox moves through it all, a constant presence, a quiet endurance, a life that continues simply because it can, because that is what life does, because that is enough. Thank you for listening to Nostalgic Wanderings. If you'd like more calm, gentle stories like this, you're very welcome to subscribe. And for now, I hope you sleep well. May your night be peaceful and your dreams be gentle. Good night.